Hello and welcome to Zinespiration. Today we have Alex from Punks Around. This is his latest zine he's put out. Thank you for joining us today, Alex.
Thanks to you guys.
Good. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex. So this, like I said in the introduction, you are the brains or the brawn behind Punks Around. Tell us a little bit about that. What is that?
The zine is an offshoot of both my time and experience in punk rock. Right now I'm a PhD candidate at Brandeis University. I study. My focus is on the history of the late Soviet Union, or the Soviet Union more generally, and environmental history specifically. So uh, the Soviet Union's relationship to nature and nature's influence on the Soviet Union and state socialism is my actual area of focus. But I grew up in punk rock, and I wrote this book called "What About Tomorrow," which is a history of punk rock in Russia and the Soviet Union, and it's an oral history for better or for worse. And to compile that history, it took about 5 years of interviewing and going back and forth to Russia, and I had all of these really great personal stories. That I couldn't put in that book because that book is an oral history, right? So my stories and stuff don't really belong in the history of Russian punk rock because I'm not a Russian punk rocker, and I wanted to create an outlet for these stories to be heard, because if you go to parties or something like that, everybody always has a story to tell, either from a show or from an experience that they did. And so Punks Around was created with the intention of each issue. This is the first issue. Each issue was going to have one kind of longest short story, like 1,300 word short story. So the first one is one of my stories. And we could talk about it more after that, but yeah, that's where the zine idea, the premise of the zine came from, of just kind of getting stories out and everything like that. But it's all related in some way or another.
Cool. Yes, so this is issue number 12 now. So you're up to number 12, and this is your latest one. All ABC punks, all but cis punks. So this is what you've been doing recently. Can you tell us a little bit about how this came to fruition?
Yeah. So as I said, the first few issues of the zine were these kind of smaller short story-ish things that Microcosm mostly put out. Uh, and by number 5, which is this one, um, by number 5 and number 6, I started to become kind of bored with the single short story platform. And the idea behind the zine, like I said, was always that there's so many different perspectives and stories in parties or punk shows or wherever you go that you it's a good idea to create sort of a space or a platform where people can tell those stories, or they can talk about how they view certain things. And so after issue number 6, the zines started becoming thematic, and they were thematic based on identities or personalities involved in punk or hardcore or really any extreme music that don't typically get the floor. Um, and so the number 7 was called The Girls' Room, and it's all women that are involved in punk rock, that book shows, that play in bands, that do uh, various other things. Number 8 was about vegans in punk rock. There's sort of another identity that maybe is not marginalized, but it's kind of unexpected, right? I've met a lot of people in my day that are surprised that punk rockers are vegan or vegetarian or something like that. And so I wanted to give vegans the space to say, well, this is why veganism actually matches with punk rock really well. And I did
Great zine.
I did. Thank you. I did. that number 8 is about drugs use, recovery, and outreach, which is actually still the crowd favorite, surprisingly. And so I wanted to have this issue of the zine be both a space for people who use, people who are recovering from drug addiction, and then people who do outreach efforts. They bring food to people on the street or something like that. And so it's kind of a hodgepodge of stories from usage and stories of recovery. Again, this sort of marginalized group. My ode to what you guys do and everything was issue number 10, the zine about zines, because I wanted to explore what is it about zines that are sort of inimical to punk rock. I mean, zines, as we know them, came from the punk rock scene, and so I wanted to find out why are they so related, and I wanted to ask sort of the big names of the zine world why that is. And then coincidentally, this was not by design at all, but the next issue, the POC issue, it coincided with what happened in the United States with the killing of George Floyd and the protests that happened afterward. It came out right around the same time, and again, it's the same message as always, just sort of giving a space to people of color that are in punk rock that might not get a voice otherwise. And then that led us to the recent one, which is doing the same thing. I mean, there's a lot of queer and non-binary and trans people involved in punk and hardcore, whether they admit it or not, that are usually drowned out by white cis males. And so I wanted to sort of give them the spotlight for a second too.
So what do you think is going to be your next zine? Do you have an idea for next couple issues that you want to tackle?
Yeah, there's 2 more issues of Punks Around coming out, and then it's kaput.
Breaking news.
Next one. No, I announced it a little bit ago. I mean, I have a lot in store after it's officially done. But the next one is on Straight Edge. Straight Edge, not just like Youth Crew Straight Edge, but Straight Edge in general, which is also a sort of counterculture and identity that came out of punk and hardcore. And then the issue 14 is going to be on mental health, because I think that mental health is something that everybody involved in punk rock, whether they admit it or not, deal with, they confront, whether it's substance abuse or anxiety or depression even, or something like that. So those are the next 2.
When you do wrap it all up, are you going to just print them all into one big like omnibus sort of thing, or do you have any plans for something like that?
Yeah, you called it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Because I'd like to get every issue, because there's I missed out on the zines one, and where you also interviewed or maybe talked with Comet Bus, which I'm a massive fan of, and also just some of the past issues, and it'd be a really cool thing to to have. I think it's a fantastic thing you're doing. How you're really diving into different areas, of the punk rock. I'm really fascinated by this.
Usually when an issue comes out, I'll print about 300 of them, then I'll distribute them. I sell probably about 100 of them on my own through Instagram, and then the rest I usually distribute to stores who buy directly from me. And it's important because the money that I get from the zines, after I recover the cost of printing, that money goes to a charity involved with the theme of the zine. And so the ABC issue went to a trans housing organization in New Orleans in Louisiana. The POC issue, the proceeds for that went to this organization called Amore Network, which helps undocumented people in America get housing and other things that they need. The Straight Edge issue, the funds are going to a sober gym called the Phoenix. And so I try to like the money's not mine because the stories aren't mine. You know what I mean? All I do is edit and compile them. And so I try to have the funds go there. The unfortunate thing that is that, so back to the point, Microcosm distributes back issues. And unfortunately, their proceeds from the zine don't go to charity. And so I usually urge people to buy the new ones through me. The other thing is that Microcosm doesn't print them in color. And so the past few issues I've had color pages and stuff like that. So I usually tell people if you want them in color to get them through me too. So, but
Okay.
What's the kind of process you go through? Start to finish, boom, you get an idea for a theme for the next zine. Do you scribble layout ideas on a piece of paper and kind of work around that? Like, what's your actual creative process for anyone who struggles with how to do it themselves?
it's a good question. So far the themes have been things that come to mind that I experience in the punk scene or that I perceive. And it's really weird the way that the zine sort of takes a life of its own. Especially the past two issues where like I said, the POC issue I had started and it was like kind of in production, and then the George Floyd stuff happened, and it was like this zine is coming to life. Holy shit! Another thing that I try to do is that, for example, I am a cis male, right? And so what I try to do is give people who are a part of this group as much autonomy over the issue, over the zine itself, as I can give them. And the process for it is really just putting out the call for submissions and seeing what I get. And usually I've garnered enough attention through it that I can probably get about 25 solid pages worth of content just from putting the call out. But then I have to fill the rest of those pages with something. And so it's usually through research. It's through looking at other zines about the topic and finding artists or something like that. Mostly it's through reading other zines. Instagram has been a huge help in finding artists that identify as are vegan or people of color or something like that. So kind of finding them and then reaching out to them and just saying, hey, I really like what you do. This is what I do. And like maybe we can work together. And there was a part of me that felt guilty about commissioning people to write or to draw without being able to pay them, because I've seen zines also say, we'll pay you this much money for your submission of this story or something like that. And I can't do that because the money goes to charity. So usually if you tell people, yeah, I can't pay you though because the money is going to this charity, and I send it to them, usually then they're on board to do it and they say, oh yeah, of course I'll do that. Like I said, so since issue 6, from 6 to now 12, the zines have been more sharply thematic, and that just happened over time. That was more of me saying, well, it's the stories that I have or that Justin had or that Joe had in North Dakota are really cool and interesting, but how do I get more people involved in this and have it sort of become a form of like collective propaganda almost? How do I like put out something like the ABC issue and not only get like all but cis people to contribute to the zine, but also have this be a piece of propaganda for other people in the scene to be like, holy shit, I didn't know that these people actually were at shows every time I went, or that they're an active major part of the punk scene. And so the theme thing has just sort of progressed and hardened over time. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask what you thought the future of zines in general, the medium was.
I think they're ballooning. I think that it's really becoming a huge thing. that I didn't expect when I started, which I think is great. I do believe that in the past 10 or so, or maybe more years, you've seen really creative writers. And I knew plenty of them who have written entire books, and then they ship the manuscript out to publishers, and the publishers just say, "Nah, no one's gonna read this. Like this is good, but nobody reads fiction anymore," or something like that. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of really creative writers and creative minds, poets or whoever, just saying kind of like the punk ethos, just fuck you. I can do this myself. Then I can put this out myself. I don't need the ISBN number or anything like that. And there's another thing that if you read the comic bus article that I wrote for the zine about zines, there's another thing. Aaron made a great point to me, which is that if you go into Quimby's or something in Chicago, a bookstore that specializes in zines, all the books are stacked like this on the shelf, like my books back here. Zines are the ones that are stacked like this. And so it's the zine as the medium that actually sticks out to you as the consumer. And so Aaron was saying, in that sense, it is the most ideal medium for putting yourself out there. Genius point. That's his point. It's not my point. Punks Around has been, for me, a means of collecting primary sources about punk rock that I can use for something bigger. And so the omnibus will be not only the publication of what are, in my opinion, the most revealing articles or poems and even artworks, but also my interpretation of all this stuff interspersed through kind of an understanding of what punk rock is, what it means to be punk, stuff like that.
And yeah, so if you are watching this, this is currently the latest issue. So definitely check it out. Hit him up on Instagram, like Ryan said. The links are down below. And thanks very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for coming on.
See you guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
See
night.
you.